Hey.
Well,
Hey.
hello there, Craig.
Hi. It's
Hi.
is it
It's
the day that we
day.
do this thing?
That's right. That's
That's
right.
That's right. Who do we have?
We have Entrepreneurship 101, Wisest Wild Worldly Words with Walter Bayliss.
Ooh, let's get it.
Dive in.
Welcome to the Insurance Dudes, a podcast for insurance agency owners, helping us to think of different ways to optimize our business and our lives.
We're excited.
Yeah. So before you're in Australia right now.
Yeah,
So is it tomorrow?
yeah,
Where you
it's
are?
the future, but I won't tell you what happens because it always spoils the surprise. You know?
Okay. All right. Yeah. Don't tell us. 'Cause it's weird.
We
So-
are
It's
back.
it's that whole Biff's Casino Back to the Future thing, you know.
Yes.
If you see a version of me, don't talk to me.
Right. You can't. It could mess everything. The space-time continuum.
I would never
it's
talk
all
to you.
messed up right there.
But in the future, you are talking to him.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. I do know what happens, so you know that helps with a lot of the planning.
Yeah. Well, you already know what's happened on this podcast.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we're done.
It's a success,
We're
by the
done.
way. It's a huge success.
Perfect. Well, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and
sure.
you know how you've gotten to where you are, and let's start digging in.
Let's
just
jam
dive
from there.
in.
Yeah, sounds great. So I've been working for myself since my daughter was born. I was the corporate professional, right? I was the guy that was in at the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. I used to play a game with my boss as to who could get in before each other. So he owned the company and I was the dream employee. And he gave up when I was there at 4 a.m. And then after that, like it was okay. All right, you win. And, but I was getting in the office at 7 in the morning. I wasn't getting home till 7 at night, but I loved it. And I put everything into it. I defined what I did by my career. And that probably sounds familiar to a lot of people. I'll come back to that because from a sales perspective, that particular job changed my opinion about being a salesperson. And I think that's probably something that the team, the listeners would like to hear. So I'll come back to that. But when my daughter was born, I honestly looked at my wife in the hospital and kissed her on the forehead on day one of my daughter being alive. And I thought, this is just not cool. And I went to the office and it was literally that day that I said, okay, I've got to find another way. So we ended up trying lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different things. Lots of those, in inverted commas, opportunities where you have to go and approach your family and friends and do all that kind of stuff. They were awful. And then we had our first break selling online advertising. You know, we just took off from there. And I can't say it hasn't been without struggles. We nearly lost everything, even as recently as 2 years ago. But that was because we put $500,000 into a project that never took off and never opened the doors. So it hasn't been without its challenges, but all the way along, the most important thing has been for me freedom. Like we've been able to be a full-time parenting couple, be a full-time family for our kids. Now they're in school, you know, go to their concerts and have international holidays, you know, a few times a year when the holidays are on. And, you know, the greatest thing ever. This is my commute, my home office. We run a multi-million-dollar business from right here.
Awesome.
And my kitchen table is like 10 steps down the hallway. So
Food right over
it's
there.
been amazing.
That's awesome. What a transformation, right? Like,
Yeah, you know,
like all over the place.
it was crazy, Jace. You know, in that corporate world, you have a paycheck every month. You know, I was working hard and there was a bonus structure there. So the money was good. And, you know, it was well into six figures, the salary and bonuses and stuff. And, you know, we bought a house, we had the whole thing going on, but from as soon as we started getting that traction as an entrepreneur with our own business, and I was able to leave the business because I actually ran them both at the same time for a good 18 months, 2 years. And then when we had the traction and I was able to come into this world full time, man, the freedom has been just unbelievable. And, you know, the internet now, like we're here on a podcast. You guys have got awesome recording stuff set up and so do I. But at the same time, you know, I've been able to do podcasts and webinars and interviews from a desk in Romania. I've been able to
awesome.
get interviews with people and talk to my team while the kids are at Legoland in Germany. And that ability of connecting and using tools to be able to run businesses from anywhere in the world really does open up the whole world of opportunity.
That is crazy. So tell us, I mean, I think people don't understand like what it's like. Yes, you can make a lot of money doing stuff, but what cost does that money come at, right? You were making well into six figures, but what cost it costs what, over 12 hours of your day?
Oh, well over.
Hang out with your family and stuff. So now you're not only making money, but the cost is very low.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, when working in the corporate world is a fantastic journey for some people that want to stay in that space, because I encourage anybody that if they're in a role where they can genuinely be rewarded for what they do, and they love what they do, then that's the spot. You know, stay in that spot and do all you can and be all you can be, because you can really create something incredible for you. From an entrepreneur's perspective, I could never go back to being employed. And that probably sucks for the people that are listening who are busting everything to get their quota this month. You know, they're trying to hit that target. I guess it's, you know, once you taste that freedom, it's hard to go back. Now, let me be really, really clear. As an entrepreneur, as somebody who runs a business, there have been many, 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 many months when we have made less than we did when I was working for someone else. Many months. But what's amazing, Jason and Greg, is that there's also been days when I made as much as I made in a whole year in a single day. Right?
That's awesome.
And I think the difference is that as an employee, you never have that day. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can bust every target there is. You can absolutely be the top performing person ever. And, you know, I've got friends who are picking up bonus checks that are six figures, right? And that's amazing. That is absolutely incredible. But as an entrepreneur, you actually have the ability to turn that on by your own desire, right? You can literally say, this is the plan, this is the execution date, this is the steps to take, and you can turn that on. So you can look and have a six-figure day. You know, you can look forward and say, okay, in 60 days time, this is what's going to happen. And we can bust everything towards it and have a six-figure day on demand. Do you know what I mean? And that's an amazing thing that you just can't do as an employee.
What were you doing as an employee? Who did you work for? And then what do you do now? And what did you learn to get there? For somebody like, I don't even, how, right?
Yeah, great question. So as an employee, I was in sales, and I mentioned that I'll talk a little bit more about this because I didn't get a lot of grades out of school, right? I stayed in school until the last day that they, you know, wanted me to stay. Well, I went all the way through. I never went to what they call in the US. I never went to college. Here in Australia, it's called university. I never went there after school. So I finished my 12 years, and you know, my grades were very, very subpar. It was an embarrassment for me at the time, but for anybody that's listening, as a student, as somebody who's under the stress of those exams, please feel me and understand that those exams are such a small snapshot of your life that you can put it in a photo album and you can do amazing things on either side of that photo album. Do you know what I mean? If you're listening and you're under the stress of the exams, please understand that that is not the end of the world. So carrying on, I got out of school, I got into hospitality, which was an amazing industry for someone with bad grades. I can be extremely friendly to people and I love being of service. Hospitality was kind to me. And then I got into sales almost by accident because and again, it's this whole self-worth thing, guys. I was embarrassed to look in the mirror and say I'm a waiter, you know? And it took me a lot of years, well into my 20s, for me to be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, you're okay. You're the guy you're supposed to be. There's nobody else but you right now. And it took a lot of years for me to have that confidence or that even self-acceptance. And I think that's such a big thing. So I got into sales because I didn't want to be a waiter, and I thought being in sales was a much more prestigious environment. And little did I know. Yeah, you know, like everybody who's listening is going, you know, I tell people I'm in sales and they run. Do you know, well, the funny thing is that we all do that to ourselves. Yeah, Craig's making the running face right now. We all do that to ourselves, right? Like we've thrown up to somebody in a social environment and they say, so what do you do? You say, I'm insurance. What was that? I'm insurance. And that, but the real pros who are listening to this and the people who desire to be pros can find a way to look themselves in the mirror and look the people in the eyes who they're talking to and say, hey, I'm insurance. What do you do? Right? Like it's that understanding of the belief that what you do is not who you are. Right? There's a very distinct difference between those two things. So that role in sales. So what your question to me, and it's a long way of answering. Sorry, man. So I was in sales before I started working for myself. I was working for a software company. We did business enterprise software. So we were closing kind of $1 million deals at the table kind of level. But I said that there was something important in that role that changed things for me. The owner of the company, the guy that was having the game with me as to who could get in the office early in the morning, he gave me a set of audio CDs. Back in the days when CDs were a thing. Actually, you know, I think they might have even been tapes and I put them onto CDs. But audio CDs from Jim Rohn. And he said, listen to these and it'll help you, you know, in your work.
The sports guy, Jim Rohn?
Say again, Craig?
The sports guy, Jim Rohn? Or
no, Jim Rohn was he's basically like he's in the same camp as Tony Robbins. He's in the same camp as Brian Tracy. He's in personal development. He is a master salesman and basically an on-stage speaker talking about taking control of your own life. Okay. Amazing guy, well worth looking up. He died a couple of years ago, but his audios are timeless. They're amazing. So anyway, I listened to this Jim Rohn stuff over and over and over and over and over again. And the most important message from that CD set was you're in control. That's it. It's Monday. What you do is up to you. Nobody's going to change it. It doesn't matter who's in the government. They are not going to make your Monday any better. It doesn't matter what's happening at home. That's not going to make your Monday any better. Only you are going to make your Monday any better. Tuesday, Wednesday. It's completely up to you whether you decide to be here or there at the end of the week. And the whole CD series was about looking yourself in the mirror and saying, this is up to me. And that really changed things for me because I genuinely did that, guys. I looked in the mirror and I said, okay, I'm in sales. And now I can either choose to be really good at this or I can choose to suck. And that choice is completely up to me. And I said, I choose to be really good at it. So, you know, I literally took a notepad and I went up into the mountains and I sat for a day and I wrote down exactly what I wanted. And I want to be the best. I want to be good at this stuff. I'm dedicated. I'm committed to it. And I started just, you know, making that a reality. Listening to good audios, reading good books, and you know that change in internal belief and ability to change things helped me really succeed in that sales environment, right? And to be able to genuinely look people in the eyes and say, "Hi, I'm in sales. My name's Walt." They are very separate things, and I'm in control of both of them. You know what I mean? Like it was a big turning point for me. So. Before I started in entrepreneurialism, I was in sales. I was working in software. I got into being an entrepreneur because one of the guys that I worked with, who was a very smart guy, was the programmer, the coder, the guy that actually made the software, right? So I went to him and I said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a program. I want to do something on the side. If you build it, I'll market it, and you know, together we'll have something." And he said, "Great, you know, I've always wanted to do something on my own." And we were good friends. He lived up to his end of the bargain. He made an amazing little software program that helped people with their personal cash flow. And I did not live up to my end of the bargain because I had no idea how to market the thing, right? So my first entrepreneurial journey in this space was a complete failure. I made 0 sales. I spent a fortune on advertising. And that was the light bulb for me. I said, hang on a second, I'm spending a fortune on advertising. The people selling the advertising are getting rich and I'm making nothing. So I found a way that I could be the guy selling the advertising. So I actually bought it cost me $100. I bought a little system that I could have somebody else set up for me, and it was selling advertising. And that was our first success. That was our first $100 night. We go to sleep and wake up with $100 in the account the next day. And we had a couple of really great years selling advertising. And your question, Jason, was what did I learn along the way? Going from an employee to an entrepreneur is a really interesting journey. There's a lot of things, and one does not equal the other. So what is the biggest lesson I've learned is that unless you have the ability to define and target your market properly, it doesn't matter if you've got the best product in the world, unless you can actually find a way of getting the right message to your market, then you will not make any money. That's probably the biggest lesson I've learned along the way. Everything else can be filled in with talented people in terms of bookwork and accounting and all that kind of stuff. That can all be filled in by talented people. But as the entrepreneur, you need to be able to define who is your customer and how am I going to reach them? That's the most important thing.
And what kind of advertisement were you selling?
Online stuff, Jace. So, and it was back in the day. So this kind of stuff probably still exists. I've been out of it for a long time, but it was a kind of thing where you were buying space on websites. So you were buying banners to be shown on different websites. And I know that, if you look at Google advertising right now, you can log into Google, you can upload a banner and your banner will be shown all the way around the web. Google just do it at about 1 billion times X more than what I was doing.
Gotcha. Cool. And then, so let's go from there. You're selling advertising, and when did you start making your own products? And so it sounds like you kind of took what that you wanted to sell and find that avatar, and then you started creating products for them.
Yeah, that's exactly how it worked. And one other big component, Jason, which was a massive success for me, was this concept of what we call affiliates or JV partners. And this is a really big lesson. If anybody is starting out online, it's starting to look at ways of expanding their market and actually make sales. What an affiliate is somebody who gets a commission for selling your product for you, right? So I say, here's my product. It's really great. And it's targeted at this particular market. And then you say, okay, who else already has customers in that market? And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're a florist. You do floral arrangements. You do roses and, nice bouquets of flowers for the girlfriend, right? You're a florist. Over the aisle from you in the shopping center, in the mall, is a jewelry store, right? They have the same customers as you do. People who buy flowers also buy jewelry. If you can do some sort of arrangement between you two, you can both make a lot of money by sharing, right? You never own a customer. People get this kind of concept. No, they are my customers. They are not your customers, because they also buy a burger from McDonald's and they also book an airline flight. You know what I mean? They're not your customers. So, but if you do this kind of joint arrangement with people who have similar interests to you, you can both serve your customers better and make a lot of money in the process. So in that jewelry floral arrangement, the jeweler goes across and says, okay, if you send out an email to your list of database, your customers who have bought flowers from you, offering them a 10% discount if they come into my jewelry store, I'll give you 10% of any of the gross profit that comes from those sales. Great. And I'll do the same for you. You send out a list, send out an email to your people who buy jewelry, asking them to come into the florist shop, and you give me 10% of the, that's called a joint venture or JV arrangement, right? So I was selling advertising and started to look around at other people that were doing the same thing. So they also had advertising sites, and keeping that same thing in mind, they are not competition. They actually have customers who will, if you're spending advertising over here, you're also going to be tempted to spend advertising over here because you want more exposure. So we started doing these cross promotions for each other, and things just really took off. So that was, we built databases of people that were interested in advertising. And then I started building products specifically into that space. So I took an idea that had been working and I said, you know what? This is one of these advertising sites. I love what it does, but it's about 80% of what I wish it could do. So I took I took it as it was to a site called, at the time it was, I think it's changed now. It's now called Odesk anyway. It's what's called a freelancing site. So a freelancing site is where you say to somebody, hey, this is what I want. Can anybody do it for me? And that can range from doing your homework at school. Don't do that, kids, by the way. You can go onto a freelancing site and ask anyone to do anything. And some of the best ones are Odesk and Freelancer, even Fiverr.com. Gets you some great talent for people to do stuff for you. So I took my 80% idea and I went onto Odesk and I said, hey guys, this is at 80%. I need to get it to 100%. Who can do that for me? And so one of the people came on and said, hey, I can do that for you. It cost you about $500. And I went, seriously, $500? That's unbelievable to me. I could have my own product for $500. It ended up costing me about $1,200. But when we launched, so now we had an existing group of affiliate and JV partners. We had an existing group of about 500-600 customers who were spending money on advertising. And I took this new concept and dropped it into the top of that group of interested people. And we did $25,000 in sales in a weekend. And so a $1,200 investment to take an 80% up to 100% and then dropping it into an existing group of people was our first big, whoa, that's a thing. And, you know, I don't know how much time you've got, but my big mistake then, because I was still working a job at this time. So this kind of selling, advertising and stuff was done between the hours of 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. Right?
Brutal. Love it.
This was brutal, right? This was the getting started part. And you know, everybody's got that same story. I was working a job during the day. I would get home, kiss the wife, you know, kiss the baby, and put her to bed and go to work. You know, my wife would go to sleep, I'd go to work, and I'd sit at the kitchen table until I couldn't feel my fingers anymore, and I had to get up go to work in the morning. But when we started having the success, was the time that I said, okay, now we can actually quit the day job and do this full time. But I did something stupid, fellas. I did something stupid. What I said to myself was, I need a nest egg. I need a safety net. I need some cash before I take this massive leap. Because everybody said to me, you need to have a couple of months worth of living expenses so that you can, you know, exist without a paycheck coming in, which was good advice. But how I got that cash was bad. I sold my advertising sites. Because I thought to myself, hey, I built it once, I can build it again in a heartbeat, right? No problem at all. So I took my advertising sites that were making good money and I sold them for 80 grand, which is an amazing amount of money for an entrepreneur. And I took that 80 grand and we put the deposit on the house and we did all that kind of stuff. And I went out on my own. But the day now you can probably see the problem right now. Now I don't have the goose that laid the golden eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now I'm in a position where I have no job and I have no income coming from the business that I had built up over the last 18 months. And I had to completely start again. And we nearly went under. Like it was a touch and go. We were down to single figure dollars in the bank account before we got back up and things started happening again.
That's great.
I think many entrepreneurs, as they get to that point where they're gonna take that jump, are, you know, have the big question mark. Is it time? And they talk to their friends. Their friends are giving the advice. You know, everybody's giving the advice, but it really is like for you. What was the feeling that made it where it was good? And then of course you now realize, well, it didn't even matter. It was the wrong way.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's always going to be the case, Craig. Like it's always going to be the case that you're going to do the wrong thing. 100% of the time, you're going to do the wrong thing. And the only way you get to the right result is by fixing it. And that's what you do. But that's an easy question to answer. How do I know when it's the right time to take that jump? For me, it was a very simple question. It was the feeling of going and putting my tie on in the morning going to work is costing me money. Right? When I actually had the feeling that the hours I was spending going to the work could have been spent making a lot more money for myself, that was literally the seesaw, the pivotal point. I felt it in my bones, and I felt that going to work right now is actually costing me money, and that's the pivotal point.
and the freedom, right? You're losing freedom to do the thing that you want to do and love.
There it is.
But the thing that ties you to it, the anchor, is that consistency of the money, of the cash flow, right?
Definitely.
Well, every 2 weeks I get my 5,000 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Boom, it keeps coming. And over here, it's like it could go months with no revenue, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, and that's an interesting journey in itself, you know, like I said, there's been many times that we've gone way down on a path back up. And I mentioned that we'd sold the site for 80,000. And I think from an entrepreneur's perspective, that is your biggest lever that you can pull, right? When you are creating something for yourself, even, guys, this is unbelievable, but even if it's not profitable, it has a value in the marketplace, right? So and I'll give you a real personal live example. One of the platforms that I've developed in the last 4 or 5 years was a webinar platform. And we had invested a lot of money into it. I think we'd spent $300,000 or $400,000 building it. We'd owned that platform for 3 or 4 years. And it wasn't profitable, but it wasn't losing money. Like, it was at that break across point, right? So we sold that business for well over 6 figures, even though it didn't have the profitability to it. So I guess what I'm saying is, from an entrepreneur's perspective, when you build something, and I don't care what that something is, when you create something, that something has a value. So the very, very best lever that you can pull as an entrepreneur is to create something. And in fact, I've got it up on my wall. It says, create something today, even if it sucks, right? Create something. The skill of the entrepreneur, there's a couch behind me in my office, and there's a door behind which goes to the gym. I love having a gym at home. But the skill of the entrepreneur is on that couch, relaxing with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and suddenly you go, whoa, hang on a second. And you grab a piece of paper and you write that down, and you're like, do you know, this would be amazing. This would be really cool, and whatever. And a million people in the world do that every single minute of the day. But then the superpower on that skill, the multiplier, comes when you wake up the next morning and you look back at that note and you go, do you know what? I really think that does have legs. And you take the next step. And the next step can be as simple as registering a domain name, right? So now you've got mybestcouchidea.com registered, and you made a few extra notes. It'll work like this, it'll do like that. And then, so we've done one multiplier, right? The next multiplier is find out what it's going to cost to build this thing that you've created. And finding that out is free. You go to some of these sites, you go to somewhere and you say, hey, give me a quote on building this. Like, if you don't have the skills, I'm not a computer programmer. I run a computer software company. I cannot write code. I have people who are very talented and skilled who love doing that stuff, right? So I can get a quote on something easily because that's my team. But you don't have to have a team of people. You can go out into any of these marketplaces. If you want to build something out of wrought iron metal with bronze and some sort of canvas, I don't know what you're building, right? But there's a company on the internet right now that if you type that in, they're going to pop up, and you can call them and say, hey, if I send you a sketch drawing, can you give me a quote? And they're going to say, hell yeah, I can. So now you've multiplied that idea by action and by taking the next step of getting it to market, right? This is the series of events that you need to take: idea, concept, how much is my cost? And then the final step, and the most important, is there a buying market for this product? And that, again, is free to find out. You can go on to Facebook or LinkedIn, and you can put up a little page that says, my idea is this, and you don't want to give away your idea, but my idea solves this problem. Would anybody out there be interested in this problem being solved, right? And if you are getting traction from your idea and the solution, then you know you have a product market fit. And now you've gone from an idea on the couch to a product, to a quote to build, to an understanding of the market. And let me tell you, right there at that point, you've got $100,000 in your pocket. And all you've done is conceptualize an idea to market. And if you have that, you've got 100 grand sitting right there. And that's the power and the skill of being an entrepreneur.
That's super cool, man. That's powerful. That, I think the action part is where a lot of people get hung up. And I don't know if it's, I think it comes down to just not believing, right? There's at some point you believe in yourself and you go for it, and you might fail a few times, but you make it. And then once you make it, you know that you can do it again.
Yeah, definitely. But before, you're right, Jace, before you make it for the first time, there's a huge amount of fear, right? There's that, wow, I've got this idea. Okay, I understand it. And then you might say, okay, now comes the bit where you say, it's going to cost me real cash or real time to take that next step. Okay. And that's what I find where most people hesitate. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're right. If you've done it before, you're able to make that jump a lot quicker. All right. It's not any easier, but you just understand what's on the other side. Okay. The cash, the investment, the outlay, the time, the effort, I understand it. I've done it. I can calculate it against a reward. But if this is your first rodeo, if this is the first time you've done it, I completely understand that you get to the edge of that chasm. You've done all of the work to get there. You've done the planning, you understand, you've even found a market, and now you're looking at this sheer cliff face drop going, now's the time. Do I actually take money out of my mortgage and go and get a prototype built, or a quote or something moving forward, or do I back away from the edge and go back to that safety and security, right? So my advice for anybody who finds themselves in that position, and believe me, guys, the advice is going to suck, right? My advice for anybody that finds themselves in that position at the edge of the chasm is this: only you know. Only you know. If I gave you the advice to go for it, just go for it. Just, pee into the wind. You've got it. You can do it. If I gave you that advice, that would be completely irresponsible of me, because I don't know what your idea is, for a start. I don't know you, and I don't know your family, and I don't know your personal situation. I cannot confidently and in my heart tell you to just give it a go and you'll make it. I can't do that. Only you know. So here's my criteria, right? You're standing on the edge of the chasm. You're standing here and you're going, right, at this very minute, I either need to put money in of my own, or I need to quit my job and start, setting up a juice stand down on the beach. Like there's a sacrifice that I need to make right now, and only you know. But how am I going to judge that? And the wisdom of years of doing this will tell you to judge the reward and the price you have to pay, and then be comfortable with the decision in between. Now, you judge the reward. You say, okay, if this works, as an entrepreneur, we all have this tendency to think best case scenario, right? This is going to be a $10 million idea, right? We all do that. And you come home to the wife and I've got a $10 million idea, and she's going to look across the table from you and go, again? We all have that tendency to say, this is going to be the big one, right? So stop, right? Divide that by 10, and then say to yourself, what's the worst case scenario? And this is important. This was advice that was given to me. What's the worst case scenario? And are you comfortable with that? So here's the worst case scenario. It's going to cost you 10 grand. It's going to cost you 10 hours. It's going to cost you whatever that sacrifice is, and it's not going to work. Are you okay with that? If you're okay, genuinely, with the worst case scenario, then everything else after that is a win. And only you know that, fellas. Only you know that if I put my 10K or my 100 grand, only you know. Now, if you are a gambler, all right, please hear my next words. Step back from the chasm, do not do anything, and go and ask someone who loves and trusts you about your choice. We are all gamblers somewhere, and we all think we've got that magic spark. And if you're going to do something and it's dangerously going to impact your family or yourself, stop, go and ask, get some wisdom and some advice before you jump. But so now we've done an assessment. What's my reward? What's the worst case scenario? Am I okay with that? And here's the next important point, guys. Here's the next important point. If you decide to jump, you better damn well fly. You better be damned committed to making that leap with every fiber of your being. And if you jump with that, it still may fail, but you need to give it everything you've got to make sure that you give it the best chance of success. That's probably the worst advice in the world, but that's my...
It's great.
That's my strategy, right?
And how I think a lot of folks, whether it's a product or a service or whatever that they're bringing to market, think that they need to have it complete. Like you need to build it, then they will come. No. And the concept of the minimum of the MVP, right? You need to bring the thing that if behind it, it has duct tape and sticks to make it look like it's the perfect thing, the perfect widget, right? And how important is that concept?
Without a doubt, Craig, that's an incredibly important question, because I said that even a couple of years ago, I put $500,000 of my own money into a product that didn't open, right? What I did not do was that MVP. I was trying to create something that was absolutely massive, and I didn't open the doors with an MVP, and I lost $500,000, right? Mm-hmm. The MVP is absolutely crucial, and the MVP can be as simple as an idea, because you've got these stages of customers, and the first people that you'll have are the early adopters, and these are the ones that will give you the feedback on the sticky tape and duct tape cobbled together, doesn't even have feathers out the top. They will give you the feedback on that, because they're the kind of people that want to get into that kind of stuff. They want to experience things breaking and, oh, this didn't work, right? There's a great book called Crossing the Chasm, which is exactly about these stages of customers. Added to the show notes. Crossing the Chasm talks about getting your MVP, your minimum, underline that word, minimum viable, underline that word, product, into the hands of these early adopters, and then getting their feedback. You absolutely need 5 to 10 people, not more, that are going to get in and talk to you about your idea. Now, let's say your idea doesn't even have anything behind it yet. It's just a picture and a description underneath that says, if all goes well, this will be what happens at this stage. Give me your feedback. And they will say, well, if this happened at this stage, that'd be good, that'd be bad, this would be how it should be, right? Then you take those 10 people to the next MVP, because now you've got real feedback from customers. And you need to have that minimum viable product. And I emphasize the word minimum, but now let me say minimum viable product, right? Those two words are so crucial to take a small section of people through to a produced end result with feedback all the way along, because then your chances of success are massively higher. Absolutely crucial.
What do you feel that the chances are now that you're doing you're moving through with the MVP? When you come out with something, what is your success rate now to compare with before?
Oh, great question. That absolutely depends on your product market fit from your concept of an idea. Like, there's a concept, Jason, you've probably heard of it. It's called the flypaper technique. Now, flypaper is the most disgusting thing that I've only ever seen it like a handful of times in my life, and it is disgusting. But what the concept of flypaper is, it's this sticky roll of tape that flies and bugs find attractive. So hopefully they go to the paper rather than you, and you turn around and you've got this paper. It's disgusting, right? But in business, when we're talking about an MVP, the concept of flypaper works like this. You throw up something and say, does anybody like this? Now, if you've got crickets and tumbleweeds and everybody going, and do you know who's going to tell you they like it? Is your mom, right?
Right.
And your best friend, and the people that you have a beer with are going to tell you that it's the greatest idea that you have ever come up with in your entire life. Those people are lying to you. Now, that's a really mean thing to say, But they love you and they want to wrap their arms around you and tell you that everything's going to be okay. And they're lying to you, okay? That's not how the flypaper technique works. In fact, you shouldn't even approach those people until you're well past the early adopter stage, right? Your flypaper technique works in a market that's targeted towards the product you're trying to achieve. And I'll give you a way of finding that out, right? So let's do this as an example, and you guys can spin it to whatever product you have. Let's say that the example you have is something to do with digital photography. Photos on the phone, Instagram, all that kind of, something that you have, some idea that you have is about the old SLR cameras. Like, you've got this thing, right? Let's say that that's your idea. Now, how do you find out if your amazing idea has got legs? You go to Facebook or LinkedIn or some social channel and you look for a group about your topic. Go to Facebook and type in digital photography. Zip, there's 17,000 groups. Pick one that has a moderate amount of people and some good activity and join the group. Once you've joined the group, reach out to the admin. Now, please do this. Don't spam the group because you'll get kicked out, right? And it's a really good way of losing your target customers before you even start. Go to the owner of the group and say, hey, my name's Walt. I'm a founder. I'm an inventor. I'm a CEO of my own company, right? And we've got a new product coming out in the digital photography space. Can I pop a post up in your group and just get some feedback as to what your members think about it? Okay. Now that's where you've just put your flypaper up, because now you can shoot a quick video or you can make a post that says, hey, I'm thinking of this. It does that. Ideally, we're going to come up with this solution. I just want to find out from you folks what your feedback is. What do you think? And let that post go. If you've got a group of 300 people and 10 people reply, that's a good number, because not everybody's busy. Everybody's got lives, right? If people reply and give you some feedback, the 10 people that comment, they're your early adopters that you want to reach out to personally and say, hey, thanks very much for commenting. When we launch this, would you be willing to be one of the first that we get it into the hands to, and give me some feedback to make sure we get the right result, right? You don't have to spend, you don't have to create a product, you don't have to invest your life savings to find out if it's going to fly. Now, Jace, your question was, what are the chances? If you do these steps, I'm going to say that the tilt of the seesaw is in your favor. Now, you still might crash and burn, right? For lots and lots of different reasons that you can fix along the way. But if you do this properly at the start, your chances are better. Right? And that's what this is about. It's about maximizing your chances of success. Does that make sense?
Totally does. And it seems, I think a lot of people get the one idea and they get very attached to it, right?
Yep,
and then
definitely.
Super subjective and your approach is way more objective. You're looking at it non-emotionally, just based on numbers. Is this going to work? Once you have more data on your side, it's a go. If not, so how attached do you get to your products?
Yeah, definitely. Like they're your children. Like you really do. You get attached to your products. But guys, like I've been through enough to understand that my love for my product does not exceed my love for my family, right? So at some point, the love for the product, and I so love you. I love you. You're my favorite product of all, but you suck and nobody likes you. Get out, right? Yeah. You're costing me a bomb. The love for what you have in your life and yourself will outweigh, and the great story is Nokia. You guys, we are old enough to know what Nokia is, but the kids listening go, who's that? Nokia was a big phone company, right? They were probably the dominant phone company before Steve Jobs came along. But funnily enough, when they launched, they sold rubber boots.
No
right.
way.
Wow, there's a little pause. One of the biggest tech companies in the world launched selling rubber boots.
Talk about a pivot.
Wow. Now that's a pivot, right? So how attached do you get to your products? Really attached, because all your heart and soul's gone into it. But I'll tell you what you get more attached to. You get more attached to your goal at the end of the line, right? And every entrepreneur knows that between now and where I want to go are choices and sacrifices. choices and sacrifices. And somewhere along the line, one of the choices may be to cut this one out and focus on that one because that's what the people want. And that's going to achieve the goal. What's the goal? The goal's $100 million exit. The goal's freedom with your family. The goal's whatever the goal is. Between now and there are going to be choices. So when you get to a choice, you've got to ask yourself, is it more important to keep this or hit that being the goal? And yeah, you get attached to your products like crazy, but you got to get attached to the goal more than the product.
What product are you most proud of? Or which one did you like the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am still incredibly proud of the webinar software platform that we built. But looking across now, I think the product that I'm most proud of is one of our reputation monitoring programs. The reason that I'm proud of it is because when we launched it, we got it wrong. It was not delivering the results that we needed it to have, but we stuck with it. We invested through it to the point now where I can put it up on a pedestal and say that product is absolutely gold. And more than that, we opened up opportunities to a lot of our partners as they were going through, and they are now having great success because of that, our commitment to the product and our ability to see that through. And the other reason that I have so much pride in that product right now is because it has also become the beginning for what we're calling phase 2, which that product is now going into a suite. And the people that have got the opportunity are coming through with us into that suite, and we're actually opening up that to a much wider path. So yeah, that one I would say is the gold star for me at the moment.
Nice. What webinar company or what webinar software?
It was a platform called Webinar Geo. We launched it in 2016. We launched it to great success. We had some really good feedback there, and just kept pouring money into it, making it better, making it keep me going. Webinar platforms are expensive to run. And we had at one point, I think just over 2,000 customers monthly paying on that one when we sold it to a very driven entrepreneur investor about 2 months ago. And he's got some really cool stuff planned for it. So yeah, that was cool.
That's really cool. That'll be nice. That'll be fun to watch, right?
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. Do you know what? We're talking about product market fit, and a big lesson that I learned with that one was you can be a small fish in a big pond. Like there's some amazing platforms out there. Like, I mean, we're talking on Zoom right now, and there's GoToWebinar, and there's Webinar Jam, and there's Demio, and there's all these other kind of platforms that are out there. So you can be a small fish in a big pond, and you can make money in that big pond. But also know that if there are big players in that pond, they are carnivorous. And the success of any business depends on your ability to spend money to get customers. You've got to advertise, you've got to be able to get people in the funnel. And if your competitors can outspend you, then you either need to switch ponds, pivot, or you need to find a really different angle to be the standout in that pond.
Yeah, to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give any newer entrepreneur, or maybe even insurance agent or somebody that owns their own business? What is the number one piece of advice that you've learned that you would tell someone, hands down, you got to do this?
Great question. So many things go through my mind there, Jace. Like, I've stood up on stage and talked about goal setting, and I've stood up on stage and talked about, lots of different things. But now, this day, asking me that question, I'm going to answer probably a little bit deeper than I used to. So my first thing is going to say to reach out. And that comes from personal experience. When we were going through hard times, people tend to withdraw. They tend to go into a cave. They tend to work harder. They tend to get up earlier, have 7 extra cups of coffee, and stay awake until 2 a.m. and just try and grind it out. And and again, I'm talking from personal experience. You just, busting it to work harder. That alone is a recipe for self-destruction. And it's a reason why on a Facebook post or, you know, a LinkedIn post or whatever, when somebody says, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I've come through a dark time and, you know, this has been my result as, you know, in response, you see so many other people jumping on and say, oh my God, thank you so much for saying that. It's made me feel better. Like there's so many of us that are entrepreneurs that run our own businesses that have that hard time and don't talk about it at all. You tend to bunker down and you tend to head down, work harder, burn out, and it's not the answer. The answer is reach out, reach out. Reach out to friends and family, absolutely. Reach out to other people who are doing the same thing. Get out of your office, get out of your head. Go and, you know, get involved with a group that walks along the beach in the morning. Like just communicate with other human beings because you are in a self-destructive cycle. And so reach out would be my number one piece of advice. And the other piece of advice would be, you are useless dead. And I mean that like in its absolute literal sense. You are useless dead, right? Like you're done. You know, the words you've said and the impact you've made may live on, but you're useless dead. So don't be dead. Right. You know, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that do go through tough times. They go through hard stuff. And again, personally speaking, I can hear my voice quavering as I'm talking. Personally speaking, you know, take a minute, take a week. If your business is in trouble, it's still going to be in trouble in 2 hours' time, right? So what you do between now and 2 hours is not going to change anything. But so stop it, get out of it. Go and stand outside and look up at the stars or look up at the sun and look up at the sky and take some deep breaths and remember why you're on this journey. Put some dreams in front of you, put some vision in front of where you see yourself going, feel the connection with what you are achieving, and just take an hour or take 2 hours and disconnect from the thing that's causing you so much pain. And you'll find that you start to recharge with that superhuman ability that entrepreneurs have to face problems and to battle their way through them. But recharge, reconnect so that you can solve the problem. Your job is to solve the problem. You can't do that when you're tired and exhausted. You need to rest and recharge, reach out, come back and solve the problem. You're useless dead, so don't be dead. Get out and be alive.
And that kind of circles back to what you were saying earlier, that you aren't your product, or you're not what you do.
I am like, more than what I do. Absolutely.
Yep.
You know, if each of us, if you took our companies away from us, if you took our agencies, if you took our business cards and our portfolios, and if you took our business away from us, then we are still more than anything else you can put a price on, right? You are so amazing as a human being, right? If you took all of that stuff away, take your Rolodex away, take your contacts away, take your bank account away, take your agency away, and stand there, you're amazing. You have so much inert ability, so much inside you that you cannot possibly imagine the work it takes, the incredible nature of who you are. You are more than what you do by a factor of 1,000,000x. What you do is so small in compared to who you are that just take a minute and take a breath and feel the power of who you are, and then come back and do what you do as an easy step in that process.
That's awesome. Dude, your enthusiasm, your energy is so infectious, man. I love it.
Yay. Cool. I'm happy to hear that, man.
I mean, you must have a killer support team at home. I mean, you've gone through a lot. You've obviously synthesized it, and it means a lot to you. Like you can tell by the way you talk, and there's a common theme in there that you've obviously been through a lot, and there's a ton of gratitude beaming off you.
No, that's great. You know, I every night before I close my eyes, My little routine is simply just to say thank you. This has been amazing. I'm so grateful for all of the amazing things. And again, I learned that from somebody who was giving me advice. Like, pull a leaf off a tree and put it in your hand and look at that damn thing, right? That is the most amazing piece of nature that you have ever seen, and it's everywhere. Just be grateful for the opportunity to take another breath. Be grateful for everything that we actually have. Yeah, it's huge.
Resets the clock. I mean, it puts everything into, we can get so stuck in these stupid little moments that honestly are meaningless. And then you step back and like, oh, that was the goal? Then why am I worried about this little thing right here? Because if that's the goal, this doesn't matter.
That's it. Exactly right. But, you know, Jace, it's so easy for us to say that from an external perspective, but when you're there, it's all consuming. And that's the issue, is that it's all consuming. Einstein said, a problem can't be solved with the same thinking that created it. Right? So a problem, whatever this is, can't be solved by you being all in it. You've got to change your perspective on it to even have a shot at solving that problem. Get back, look at it from a different way, get somebody else involved, shut the problem down and move it off the desk for a week, right? And work on something else that's fun and engaging. A problem can't be solved by the same thinking that created it. And whatever that problem is, here's something really fascinating, right? Your neighbor does not care. Right? Your neighbor doesn't care. Like the guy who's driving down the street, the person you're parked behind at the traffic lights right now does not care about your problem. Right? It is so small and insignificant. But when you're there and in front of it, it's all consuming. The only way that you can stop it from consuming you is to get the hell out of it. Right? I used to teach martial arts, and I used to say to the kids, the very best form of winning a fight is to not be there. Right? I was a second-degree black belt. I can throw a kick and a punch that can do some damage, right? But I used to put a 6-year-old kid in front of me, and I used to say, take 2 steps back. Now I try and hit and kick and punch and whatever. I can't reach that kid, right? That's a 6-year-old kid, and I'm a second-degree black belt. I can do no damage to them. The best way of solving or best way of winning a fight is to not be there, right? So you want to take that into a business sense. The best way of solving that all-consuming problem is to get the hell out of the cave and stop being consumed by it. You have to step back, and that's what I'm saying. Reach out, you guys. If you're struggling and you're facing that feeling of being uphill, step back, get charged, and approach it from a different angle.
Love it.
Sometimes our the focus and drive that make us the entrepreneur then consumes us when we get to those roadblocks because we think we need to keep going.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Your advice is spot on. Just step away.
I hope it's helpful. Like there's so much joy that an entrepreneur brings to their world and the world around them. Like this is the group of people that creates opportunity and creates positive energy and flow and all the good things that come from entrepreneurs, and I absolutely love it. And it's important to realize that you're part of that. You're part of that whole, and enjoy it, because you are the people that make the difference. And like I said, you're useless dead. I love you've probably heard it a million times, but when you're on the planes and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on, and they say to the parents, if you're with a child, put your own mask on first and then help your children. And your instinctive reaction as a parent goes, no, save the kids. But let's look at what happens. So imagine if you were trying to help your 6-year-old put their mask on, and just as you get the oxygen and you've blacked out. What are the chances that 6-year-old can help you? 0. Right. You've got to look after yourself so that you have the things that you need to be able to help other people. This group, the entrepreneurs, the agency owners, the dudes that are making things happen, look after yourself with, all of the things that we all know, but primarily with your own belief in yourself and your ability to achieve the goals that you've set. Look after yourself so that you have the toolkit to help others.
That's it.
Man,
Look at these
drop the mic.
just nuggets at the end. Love it.
So powerful.
Very cool.
Hey, Walt, thank you so much, man. I didn't think we were going to get an hour out of you, but that is incredible.
Awesome. Well, guys, I hope it helps. For anybody that's listening, take it with you. Take a minute, take a pad, write it down. You are more than what you do. And we love the fact that you're a part of the whole. Come with us.
And if anybody wants to follow you, see what you're doing, how can they get a hold of you?
Thanks. So just head to waltbayliss.com. The guys will probably put it in the show notes there, waltbayliss.com. You can subscribe to the podcast and our Facebook page and YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. And we're just talking about, being better human beings and achieving goals and creating new things. That's what we do.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.
We'll definitely be subscribing. So
awesome. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate the chance. And as I said, for anybody that's listening, you are so welcome in this circle of entrepreneurialism. If you imagine a pizza and you've got pieces of the pizza, you take any one of those pieces out, then that pie is not whole anymore, right? You listening to this right now are part of that whole, and we need you. And it's great to have you with us.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Walt.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you when we catch up because you're in the future.
Cheers, guys. See you then.
55% of insurance sales producers say that they have had little or no sales training. Us agents focus on marketing to drive activity and often overlook the sales presentation. Improvements in mindset, shifting focus, rapport, needs diagnosis, value building, creating buy-in, and overcoming objections lead to drastically better closing numbers. The solution? Enroll your team in September's Sales Summit offered by Agency Vault. We will even assess your team to see which of their sales steps need the most improvement. Head to agencyvault.com to sign up before it's full.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.